Stop what you are doing right now, because what I am about to tell you is not just a football story. This is a civil war. This is a national crisis unfolding in real time at the FIFA World Cup 2026. Portugal, one of the most talented squads on earth. Bruno Fernandes, João Neves, Vitinha, Ruben Dias, Pedro Neto. A golden generation that should be talking about lifting the World Cup trophy. But instead, they are talking about Cristiano Ronaldo, and it is getting very ugly. Portugal drew 1-1 with Congo DR in their opening World Cup group game. Ronaldo was invisible, and the entire country has now split in half over whether he should still be in the team. Half the fan base says he is a liability. The other half is flooding the social media accounts of Bruno Fernandes, João Neves, and Vitinha with abuse, accusing them of deliberately freezing out the greatest player in Portuguese history because of jealousy. And Vítor Pinto, deputy editor of Record, Portugal's biggest football newspaper, said 6 words that set the internet on fire. This highlights the risk of a civil war that could emerge within the national team. Civil war at a World Cup inside a squad that arrived in North America as genuine contenders. This is not a metaphor. This is the reality inside the Portugal camp right now. And on 1998's Way Today, we are going deep on every single layer of this story. We are going to look at what happened in that Congo DR game. We are going to examine whether Ronaldo is really hurting Portugal. We are going to analyze the tactical cost of playing a 41-year-old striker who cannot press. And we are going to answer the one question nobody in Portuguese football seems willing to answer directly. Should Cristiano Ronaldo still be starting for Portugal at this World Cup? Let's go. Before we get into the arguments, let me set the scene properly. Portugal arrived at the 2026 World Cup ranked among the genuine favorites. Roberto Martinez had built a squad with extraordinary depth. The midfield, Vitinha, João Neves, Bruno Fernandes, is arguably the best trio Portugal has ever had. Rafael Leao, Pedro Neto, Diogo Jota in attack. Ruben Dias anchoring the defense. A squad that should be talking about semifinals and finals. And then there is Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, 41 years old. Still playing, still starting, still the captain, still the figurehead whose face is on every billboard and advertisement. But something has fundamentally changed, and the Congo DR game showed it in brutal, uncomfortable terms. Portugal controlled the match. They had the ball. They created chances through their midfield and wide players. But Ronaldo, on the pitch for the full 90 minutes, barely touched it in dangerous areas. He did not press from the front. He did not drop deep to link play. He stood in the box, waiting for crosses that never arrived in the delivery he needed. Now, let us talk about the tactical reality, because this is where the argument against starting Ronaldo becomes very, very strong. Modern elite football demands that your center forward does significantly more than score goals. Your striker needs to initiate the press from the front line. They need to be the first line of defense when the opposition has the ball. They need to link play by dropping deep and holding up the ball. They need to create space by running in behind. Cristiano Ronaldo, at 41 years old, cannot do these things at the level this Portugal system requires. His press rate is among the lowest of any starting forward at this tournament. When Portugal are out of possession, Ronaldo essentially stands still and waits. That means Bruno Fernandes has to cover the channels Ronaldo is not tracking. It means Vitinha and João Neves run 3 or 4 extra kilometers per game to compensate for the pressing deficit. And it means the entire right channel of Portugal's press, the space that a pressing striker should close, is wide open. Short pause. Congo DR found that space immediately. They attacked through it repeatedly. And they scored from exactly that pattern. Multiple Portuguese analysts writing in Record and Ebola all pointed to the same thing. The open channel, the absent press, the structural imbalance that one non-pressing striker creates across the entire team. And the numbers at this tournament make the argument very hard for Roberto Martinez to continue ignoring. Now, the social media civil war. This is where the story becomes genuinely extraordinary. After the Congo DR draw, Bruno Fernandes, one of the best midfielders on the planet, found his social media flooded with abuse.
Not from opposing fans, from Portuguese fans, his own people, accusing him of jealousy, of deliberately not passing to Ronaldo, of trying to sabotage his last World Cup. Bruno Fernandes, a man who plays every single game with his heart on his sleeve, who runs himself into the ground every match, who has been one of the most consistently brilliant midfielders in European football for 6 consecutive years, being accused by his own fan base of sabotaging Cristiano Ronaldo. João Neves, 20 years old, at his first World Cup, signed by Paris Saint-Germain for nearly 70 million euros before his 19th birthday. Same treatment. Vitinha, Pedro Neto, all of them. And here is the truly dangerous part. Think about what that means psychologically for these young players. You are João Neves, 20 years old, your first World Cup. You trained your entire life for this moment. You are representing your country on the biggest stage in football. And every time you receive the ball and choose a pass that is not to Ronaldo, millions of people attack you on social media within minutes. That is real psychological pressure. That could affect how these players think during games, how they make decisions, whether they play with freedom or with fear. And that is exactly why Vítor Pinto used the phrase civil war. Because this is not a healthy debate among fans about selection. This is a tribal conflict. One group of fans effectively holding the entire squad hostage to the protection of one player. And according to multiple sources inside the Portuguese football world, the toxic atmosphere is already having a measurable impact on the dynamic within the squad. This is not background noise. This is a crisis.
Now, I want to step back from the tactics and the social media noise, and I want to talk about something more human. Because buried underneath all of this controversy and conflict, there is a genuinely moving story. Cristiano Ronaldo is 41 years old. 5 Ballon d'Or awards, 4 Champions League titles, over 900 career goals. A Euro 2016 triumph, he led on one leg, literally hobbling on the touchline after going off injured in the final, screaming instructions at his teammates, willing them to glory. He is by any measure an all-time immortal of the game. A player who defined an era of football as completely and as brilliantly as anyone who ever played. And this World Cup, this 2026 tournament, was supposed to be his final act, his farewell, the last chapter of the greatest individual football story of his generation. Because even Ronaldo, for all his extraordinary physical conditioning, his iron will, his relentless professionalism, even he cannot play international football forever. At 41, this is almost certainly his last World Cup, and possibly his last major tournament. He knows it. His teammates know it. Roberto Martinez knows it. The entire football world knows it. And there is something profoundly poignant about watching a man who was for 15 years the best or second best player on the planet struggle to fit into the tactical identity that his own national team has built in his absence. Because that is exactly what has happened. While Ronaldo was competing in Saudi Arabia with Al Nassr, Portuguese football moved on. It evolved. It built a new collective identity, pressing, dynamic, fluid, young, that does not revolve around a static striker waiting in the penalty box. The players who built that identity, Bruno Fernandes, João Neves, Vitinha, were the football of right now. And Ronaldo, for all his genius, represents a different era, a different style, a different football. And the cruel irony at the heart of this entire story is this. Ronaldo's greatest quality, his refusal to quit, his iron will, his insistence on competing at the highest level for as long as humanly possible, the very thing that made him a legend, is now the thing that is creating the crisis. His his greatest strength has become, in the autumn of his career, his greatest challenge.
So here is what I actually think should happen. And I want to be very clear. I am not starting him every single game as an immovable fixture in the lineup. Use him as a weapon. Let Portugal's brilliant young midfield, Vitinha, João Neves, Bruno Fernandes, press and dominate and control games for 60 minutes. Build the pressure, tire the opposition, open the spaces. And then, when those spaces open up, when the opposition defense is tired and stretched, when a lethal finisher arriving late into the box is the single most dangerous player on the pitch, bring Ronaldo on. He is still one of the deadliest penalty box strikers alive. His movement in the final third, his aerial ability, his clinical finishing under pressure, all still elite. But those qualities are most valuable in the last 30 minutes of a game where space has opened up, not in the first 30 minutes where the system demands pressing and mobility and defensive contribution. If Martinez could have that conversation with Ronaldo, if Ronaldo could genuinely accept a changed role, Portugal would be frightening. One of the most complete combinations in world football. Dynamic and relentless for 60 minutes, then clinical and devastating in the final third for 30. A team that controls the game with youth and then kills it with experience. But that conversation requires Ronaldo to accept something he has never truly accepted before. That his role has fundamentally changed. That serving Portugal at 41 means something completely different to what it meant at 25. And whether Cristiano Ronaldo, a man whose entire identity, whose entire psychology, whose entire being is built around being the starter, the main character, the best player on the pitch, whether he can make that acceptance is the most fascinating and most human question of this entire World Cup. This is why sport is extraordinary. Every now and then, amidst the goals and the VAR decisions and the group stage standings, you get a story that is about something genuinely human. The collision between greatness and time, between loyalty and pragmatism, between what a player was and what a team needs right now. Cristiano Ronaldo's story at this World Cup is the story of every great athlete who eventually faces the hardest moment of their career. The moment when the thing you love, the thing that defined you and made you who you are, starts to demand more from you than your body can give. Zidane faced it, Pele faced it, every legend eventually faces it. And how you face that moment, with grace, with defiance, with bitterness, or with dignity, defines the final chapter of your legacy just as powerfully as any trophy you ever lifted. There is one scenario where this story ends beautifully. Portugal reach the knockout rounds. They face a team that Ronaldo's box presence is perfectly suited to punish. Martinez delivers balls into the box. Ronaldo scores twice. The old warrior, the veteran, the legend, becomes the hero of the knockout stage the way great athletes always dream of. It is entirely possible. Veterans save their best for the biggest moments all the time. But there is another scenario, and it is the one that keeps Portugal fans awake at night. They face an elite pressing team in the last 16. Ronaldo's lack of mobility is exposed. The opposition use the open channels he creates. Portugal concede, they lose, they go home. And the post-mortem asks the same question that everyone is already asking right now. Why did Martinez keep starting him? That question has no clean answer, and that is what makes this story so compelling. There is no villain here. There is no obvious right call. There was only the tragedy of greatness confronting its own limits, and a nation divided over how much loyalty is owed to a legend who may have passed the point where he can still care of them. Portugal's World Cup is a story about the hardest thing in sport. Knowing when to step back. Knowing when